Hello and welcome to English in Fluency. My name is Alex, and I am so glad you have chosen to spend some time with me today. Have you ever felt like you are trying to hold water in your hands? The harder you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. You are running around, trying to fix problems for your friends, trying to meet the expectations of your family, trying to control every little detail at work. And at the end of the day, you feel completely exhausted. And nothing seems to be any better. In fact, sometimes it feels worse. You feel a constant pressure, a weight on your shoulders that never goes away. You believe that if you just try a little harder, give a little more advice, or manage one more situation, everything will finally click into place. But it never does. What if I told you there is another way? A path that feels strange at first, almost wrong, but leads to a kind of peace and clarity you have only dreamed of. It is the path of focusing on yourself, of choosing silence, and of trusting that when you do, everything else will begin to fall into place, almost like magic. Today, we are going to explore this powerful idea through a story. It is a story about a man who was drowning in the chaos of trying to control everything, and how he found freedom by letting go. As you listen, you will not only improve your English listening skills, but you might also discover a simple truth that could change the way you live your life. So find a comfortable place, take a deep breath, and let's begin. Our story is about a young man named Leo. To an outsider, Leo's life looked perfectly fine. He had a decent job in a marketing firm, a small but comfortable apartment in the city, and a circle of friends he had known for years. But on the inside, Leo felt like he was constantly running a marathon with no finish line. His mind was always busy, always buzzing with the problems of others. His phone was a constant source of anxiety. One moment, it was a message from his best friend, Maya, who was in the middle of another dramatic crisis with her boyfriend. The next, it was a call from his younger sister, Sarah, who needed his help with an assignment she had left until the last minute. At work, he was the unofficial problem solver. His colleague Ben was always complaining about his workload, and Leo would often stay late to help him, even though it meant his own work suffered. Leo believed he was being a good friend, a good brother, and a good colleague. He thought that this was what it meant to be a caring person. But the truth was, he was exhausted. He would wake up in the morning feeling tired, his shoulders tight with stress. He drank too much coffee just to get through the day. And at night, he found it hard to sleep because his brain would not switch off. It was constantly replaying conversations, worrying about Maya's relationship, Sarah's grades, and Ben's deadlines. He had no time or energy for himself. His own hobbies, like sketching and going for long walks in the park, were distant memories. He was living everyone's life but his own. The turning point for Leo came on a completely ordinary Tuesday. The day started with a frantic series of messages from Maya. Her boyfriend had forgotten their anniversary, and she was heartbroken and angry. Leo spent his entire morning commute texting her, offering advice, suggesting things she should say, and trying to calm her down. When he got to the office, he saw Ben looking stressed, staring at a mountain of paperwork. Immediately, Leo's focus shifted. He spent the next hour helping Ben organize his tasks, completely forgetting about an important report he was supposed to be writing. Then, a call from his sister, Sarah. She was in a panic about an upcoming exam. Leo spent his lunch break on the phone with her, trying to explain a difficult concept, his own stomach rumbling with hunger. By the time the afternoon came, Leo felt a familiar headache starting to build behind his eyes. He looked at his own to-do list and felt a wave of panic. He was so far behind. He felt a strange mix of resentment and guilt. He was angry that everyone demanded so much from him, but he also felt guilty for feeling that way. Wasn't he supposed to help the people he cared about? As he was leaving work, feeling defeated, his phone buzzed again. It was Maya. Her crisis had escalated. Leo stood on the busy street corner, the noise of the traffic fading into the background. He felt a tightness in his chest, and it was suddenly hard to breathe. He felt dizzy, overwhelmed by the weight of everyone else's world. He did not want to answer the phone. For the first time, he just wanted to run away. He ignored the call and started walking, with no destination in mind. He walked for what felt like hours, his mind a storm of confused thoughts. He found himself in a quiet part of the city he had never explored before, with old buildings and tree-lined streets. He stumbled upon a small, old-fashioned bookstore called The Quiet Page. Through the window he could see warm lights and towering shelves of books. It looked like a peaceful sanctuary, a world away from his chaotic life. On an impulse, he pushed the door open. A small bell chimed, and a calm, quiet atmosphere enveloped him. The air smelled of old paper and leather. An elderly man with kind eyes and a gentle smile looked up from behind a large wooden desk. He had a thick white beard and wore a comfortable-looking cardigan. This was Mr. Elias, the owner of the store. He had run this shop for over 50 years, and he had seen many people like Leo walk through his door, people searching for something they could not quite name. Mr. Elias simply nodded at Leo and went back to reading his book, giving Leo the space he needed. Leo wandered through the narrow aisles, running his fingers over the spines of the books. He wasn't looking for anything in particular. He was just soaking in the silence. The quiet was so profound it felt like a soft blanket, calming the frantic buzzing in his head. After a while, he found himself near the back of the store, in a section labeled Philosophy and Self. He pulled out a random book and sat down in a worn-out armchair tucked into a corner. He didn't even read the words. He just stared at the page, letting the peace of the room wash over him. After some time, Mr. Elias walked over, holding 2 cups of steaming tea. He offered one to Leo without a word. Leo, surprised by the kindness, took it and mumbled, "Thank you." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, sipping their tea. Then Mr. Elias spoke in a soft, calm voice. "You look like a man who is carrying a heavy load," he said, not as a question, but as a simple observation. The directness of the statement caught Leo off guard. He felt his defenses crumble, and to his own surprise, he started talking. He told this complete stranger everything. He talked about Maya, Sarah, Ben, the constant pressure, the feeling of being pulled in a million different directions, and the overwhelming exhaustion. He explained how he felt responsible for everyone's happiness, and how he felt like he was failing at it. Mr. Elias listened patiently, his eyes never leaving Leo's face. He didn't interrupt, he didn't judge, he just listened. This act of pure, uninterrupted listening was something Leo had never experienced before. He was always the one doing the listening, but it was always with the intent to solve, to fix. He wasn't just hearing words. He was absorbing problems to add to his own collection. To have someone listen to him, truly listen, was a profound relief. When Leo finally finished, his voice hoarse with emotion, Mr. Elias nodded slowly. He took a sip of his tea and looked at a small potted plant sitting on a nearby windowsill. "Imagine your life is a garden," Mr. Elias began, his voice still soft and steady. "Right now, you are spending all your time and energy running around, trying to water everyone else's garden. You run to your friend's garden, you see a weed, and you pull it. You run to your sister's garden, you see a dry patch, and you give it all your water. You are so busy tending to their gardens that you have completely neglected your own. Your own soil is dry, weeds are growing everywhere, and your flowers have stopped blooming." Leo looked at him, captivated by the simple analogy. It made perfect sense. He felt exactly like a neglected garden. "What you need to do," Mr. Elias continued, "is to stop. Go back to your own garden. For a while, just focus on that. Stay within your own fences. Be silent. Don't run out every time you think you see a problem elsewhere. Your only job is to tend to your own soil, pull your own weeds, and water your own plants. It will feel selfish at first. It will feel like you are abandoning the people you care about. But a strange thing will happen. When you focus on your own garden, it will start to flourish. It will become a beautiful, healthy, and peaceful place. And then, something amazing happens. The people you care about, they will see your beautiful garden. They might be inspired to start tending to their own. And you will find that they are more capable of solving their own problems than you ever believed. Your silence and your focus on yourself will give them the space they need to grow on their own. The greatest gift you can give to others is not to fix their problems, but to become a person who is so at peace, so strong within yourself, that you inspire them to find their own strength. The old man's words settled deep within Leo. It was a concept so simple, yet so revolutionary to him. Focus on his own garden. Stay silent. Let things fall into place. It went against every instinct he had. His entire identity was built around being the helper, the fixer. Who would he be if he wasn't that person? He felt a mix of fear and excitement. The idea of letting go was terrifying, but the promise of peace was incredibly tempting. He thanked Mr. Elias, a genuine, heartfelt thank you. He bought the book he was holding, not because he wanted to read it, but as a memento of this life-changing conversation. As he walked home, the city lights seemed to blur around him. Mr. Elias's words echoed in his mind. Focus on your own garden. He made a decision. He was going to try. He didn't know how, and he was sure it would be difficult. But he had to try. He was tired of living in everyone else's chaos. He wanted to find out what his own garden could look like if he actually paid attention to it. He knew this would be a difficult journey. It required him to change habits he had built over many years. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a tiny spark of hope. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was his own. The very next day, Leo's resolve was put to the test. He woke up feeling a little more rested than usual, perhaps because of his newfound determination. He decided to start his day differently. Instead of immediately grabbing his phone to check for messages and new crises, he left it on the bedside table. He went to the kitchen, put on some calm music, and made himself a proper breakfast. He sat by the window and ate slowly, just watching the world wake up outside. It felt strange, this quiet start to the day. He felt a little anxious, wondering what problems were already waiting for him in his inbox, but he pushed the feeling away. This was his time. This was him, tending to his own garden first. Of course, the moment he finally looked at his phone, the familiar chaos erupted. There were several missed calls and a long stream of frantic messages from Maya. Her fight with her boyfriend had apparently gotten worse. Old Leo would have immediately jumped into action. He would have called her, spent an hour dissecting every word of her argument, and offered a detailed plan of what she should do next. But today was different. He remembered Mr. Elias's words. Stay silent. Stay in your own garden. He took a deep breath and did something that felt incredibly uncomfortable. He typed a simple, short reply. That sounds really tough, Maya. I'm thinking of you. That was it. No advice, no questions, no offer to fix it, just a simple acknowledgement of her pain. He hit send, and his heart pounded in his chest. He felt a huge wave of guilt. Was he being a bad friend? Was she going to be angry with him? For the rest of the morning, he fought the urge to check his phone every 2 minutes to see her reply. This was his first real challenge. The habit of interfering was so deeply ingrained in him. To help himself, he decided to focus on a task he had been putting off for weeks. He needed to organize his personal finances, a task he always found boring and stressful. But now, he saw it as part of tending to his garden. He laid out all his papers, made a spreadsheet, and for 2 hours he focused solely on that. It was difficult at first, his mind wanting to wander back to Maya, but he gently guided it back to the numbers in front of him. After a while, he found himself getting into a state of flow. The world outside his task faded away. When he was finished, he felt a surprising sense of accomplishment. He had taken a messy, stressful part of his own life and brought some order to it. It was a small thing, but it felt significant. He had pulled a weed from his own garden. Later that afternoon, Maya replied. Leo's stomach twisted with nerves as he opened the message. But her reply was not angry. She simply wrote, "Thanks, Leo. I appreciate that." It was a simple message, but it was a revelation for Leo. Maybe she didn't always need him to provide solutions. Maybe, just maybe, sometimes all she needed was to feel heard and supported. This small interaction gave him a little boost of confidence. Perhaps this new approach wasn't so crazy after all. The practice of silence and non-interference is a key part of this journey. Let's take a moment here to understand it better. When we talk about staying silent, it does not mean ignoring people or being cold and distant. It is a more active and thoughtful kind of silence. It is the practice of listening without the immediate need to respond with a solution. Think about the last time a friend told you about a problem. Did you really listen? Or were you just waiting for them to finish so you could tell them what to do? Most of us do the latter. We think we are helping, but often we are taking away the other person's power to find their own solution. Active listening, which is what Leo was starting to practice, means giving your full attention to the speaker. You listen to their words, you notice their tone of voice, and you acknowledge their feelings. You become a safe space for them to explore their own thoughts. A simple phrase like, "That sounds really difficult," or "I can see why you would feel that way," can be much more powerful than a long list of unsolicited advice. Let's try a little practice. Imagine a friend comes to you and says, "I'm so stressed about my job. I don't think my boss appreciates all the hard work I'm doing." what would your usual response be? Maybe something like, "You should talk to your boss," or "Maybe you should look for a new job." Now, let's try a response that practices this new kind of silence and support. You could say, "I'm sorry to hear that. It must be frustrating to feel unappreciated." Can you see the difference? The first response jumps to a solution. The second one validates their feeling. It keeps the focus on them, not on your idea of a fix. Try saying that second sentence out loud. It must be frustrating to feel unappreciated. It feels more empathetic, more supportive. This is the kind of powerful silence Leo was beginning to discover. It was not about abandoning his friends. It was about learning to support them in a more meaningful and respectful way. Leo's next challenge came from his family, specifically his sister, Sarah. Sarah had a habit of relying on Leo for almost everything. She was smart and capable, but she had learned over the years that if she was in a difficult situation, her big brother would always be there to rescue her. This time she called him in a panic on a Thursday evening. "Leo, I'm so sorry to bother you, but my presentation is tomorrow morning, and my computer just crashed. I've lost all my slides. Can you please help me? Maybe you could come over and look at it, or help me recreate the presentation from scratch. I'll fail if I don't have it." In the past, Leo would have dropped everything. He would have canceled his own plans, rushed over to her apartment, and stayed up until 3 a.m. fixing her problem. He would have been tired and resentful the next day, but he would have done it, because that was his role. But this time, he paused. He took a breath and thought about his garden. He had planned a quiet evening for himself. He was going to cook a nice meal, read his book, and go to bed early. This was part of his new commitment to himself. Helping Sarah would mean abandoning his own needs completely. This was not about silence, but about setting a boundary. A boundary is like a fence around your garden. It is not there to keep people out, but to protect what is inside, to protect your time, your energy, and your well-being. Setting this boundary felt even harder than being silent with Maya. This was his little sister. He loved her and wanted her to succeed. He felt a huge pang of guilt just thinking about saying no. But he also knew that by always rescuing her, he was preventing her from learning how to handle crises on her own. He was, in a way, keeping her from growing. So, with a shaky voice, he said, "Sarah, I'm really sorry to hear that. That sounds incredibly stressful." He started by validating her feelings, just as he had with Maya. He let her vent her frustration for a few minutes. Then, he gently set his boundary. "I understand you're in a tough spot, but I can't come over tonight. I have some things I really need to take care of." He braced himself for her reaction. There was a moment of stunned silence on the other end of the line. Then, Sarah's voice came back, full of disbelief and disappointment. "You can't? But Leo, I really need you. I'm going to fail." Her words were like a direct hit to his guilt complex. He felt terrible. The old Leo would have caved in right then. But he held firm. He said, "I know you feel that way, but I have confidence in you. You're resourceful. Think about what your options are. Can you call the university's IT support? Can you use a friend's computer? Maybe you can email the professor and explain the situation." He was not abandoning her. He was pointing her towards her own resources, her own strength. He finished the call by saying, "I know you can figure this out. Call me in the morning and let me know how it went." Leo hung up the phone, and his hands were trembling. He felt like the worst brother in the world. The guilt was so intense that he couldn't enjoy his evening as he had planned. He paced around his apartment, wondering if he had made a huge mistake. He almost called her back a dozen times to say he was on his way. But he didn't. He forced himself to stick to his decision. He made his dinner, but he could barely taste it. He tried to read his book, but he kept reading the same sentence over and over again. This was much harder than he had imagined. Tending to your own garden, he realized, sometimes means enduring uncomfortable feelings. It means choosing your own well-being, even when it disappoints someone else. That night, he slept poorly, worried about Sarah. The next morning, he woke up with a feeling of dread. He was almost afraid to check his phone. But when he did, there was a message from Sarah. It read, "Hey, just wanted to let you know the presentation went really well. My friend Mia let me use her laptop, and we stayed up late and got it done. The professor even said it was one of the best in the class. Thanks for believing in me. Talk later." Leo read the message once, then twice. A slow smile spread across his face. A huge weight lifted from his shoulders. She had done it. She had figured it out on her own. And more than that, she wasn't angry with him. She had thanked him for believing in her. By not rushing in to save her, he had given her a far greater gift. The opportunity to see how capable she truly was. He had stayed in his own garden, and as a result, a new flower had bloomed in hers. This experience was a powerful lesson for Leo. He learned that setting boundaries was not about being selfish. It was about creating healthier, more respectful relationships. Let's explore this idea of boundaries a bit more. Boundaries are the limits we set for ourselves in our relationships with other people. They define what we are comfortable with and what we are not. Many of us, like Leo, struggle with setting them because we are afraid of being seen as unkind or selfish. We are afraid of conflict or of disappointing people we care about. But without boundaries, we can easily become overwhelmed, resentful, and exhausted. Learning to say no is a fundamental part of setting boundaries. It is not a negative word. It is a word that protects your most valuable resources, your time and your energy. When you say no to something you don't have the capacity for, you are saying yes to your own needs and well-being. Practicing this can be simple. You can start with small things. For example, if a colleague asks you to take on extra work when your own plate is already full, you could say, "I'd like to help, but I don't have the capacity to take on anything else right now." Notice the phrasing. It is polite but firm. It does not make excuses. It simply states your current reality. Try saying that sentence aloud. "I don't have the capacity to take on anything else right now." It is a powerful and honest statement. By setting this boundary, you not only protect yourself from burnout, but you also teach others to respect your time. Leo's interaction with Sarah showed him that setting a boundary, even when it feels hard, can lead to a more positive outcome for everyone involved. He was not just tending to his garden, he was teaching his sister how to tend to hers. The workplace presented another unique challenge for Leo. The office culture at his marketing firm was very social, and at times filled with drama. People often complained about their bosses, their clients, or each other. Leo's colleague, Ben, was the epicenter of this negativity. Ben was a chronic complainer. Every day, he had a new problem. The coffee wasn't hot enough, a client was too demanding, his computer was too slow. He would often come to Leo's desk and spend 30 minutes complaining, draining Leo's energy and focus. Leo, wanting to be a supportive colleague, would always listen and agree, sometimes even joining in on the complaining. He thought this was how you build camaraderie at work. But after his conversation with Mr. Elias, he started to see it differently. He realized that these complaint sessions were like letting someone plant weeds in his garden. They were unproductive, they lowered his mood, and they took his focus away from his actual work, which was the reason he was there. He decided he needed to detach from this cycle of negativity. Detachment is different from being uncaring. It means observing a situation without getting emotionally entangled in it. It is about not taking on other people's negative energy as your own. This was going to be tricky. He didn't want to seem rude or unfriendly to Ben. The next time Ben came over to his desk with a storm cloud over his head, Leo was prepared. Ben started in on his usual complaints about a particularly difficult project. "I can't believe this client," Ben said, sighing dramatically. "They want everything yesterday. It's impossible. I don't know why I even bother trying." The old Leo would have immediately agreed, saying something like, "I know, they're the worst. I had a terrible experience with them last month." This would have fueled the fire, leading to a long, negative conversation. Instead, Leo looked up from his work, made eye contact, and said in a neutral, calm tone, "Yes, it sounds like a very challenging project." He acknowledged Ben's frustration, but didn't add his own emotional energy to it. He didn't agree or disagree. He just stated a fact. Then, he immediately and politely redirected the conversation back to his own work. "I need to finish this report before lunch. Is there something specific you needed help with?" This simple question changed the dynamic. It shifted the conversation from aimless complaining to a practical, work-focused interaction. Ben was a bit taken aback. He was used to having a complaining partner. He mumbled, "Oh, no, not really. I was just venting." Leo gave him a small, polite smile and turned back to his computer. "Okay, well, I'd better get back to this." The conversation was over in less than 2 minutes, instead of the usual 30. Leo felt a little awkward, but also incredibly relieved. He had protected his time and his mental space. He hadn't been rude. He had simply been clear about his priorities. He repeated this technique over the next few weeks. Every time Ben or another colleague tried to pull him into a cycle of gossip or complaining, Leo would listen for a moment, offer a neutral acknowledgement, and then politely redirect back to work or excuse himself. Slowly but surely, people started to get the message. They learned that Leo was not the person to go to for unproductive venting. Some of them stopped coming to his desk as often, but his more positive and focused colleagues started interacting with him more. His conversations at work became more productive and centered around creative ideas and solutions rather than problems. An amazing thing started to happen to his work. With fewer interruptions and less negative energy bogging him down, his focus and productivity soared. He was finishing his tasks ahead of schedule, and the quality of his work improved dramatically. His boss, a sharp woman named Mrs. Gable, started to notice. She complimented him on his recent reports and his proactive approach to a new campaign. Leo was discovering that by refusing to participate in the office drama, he was not only protecting his own peace of mind, but he was also becoming a better, more effective employee. He was tending to the professional section of his garden, and it was beginning to bear fruit. As the weeks went by, Leo found himself with something he hadn't had in years: spare time and mental energy. He was no longer spending his evenings on the phone solving Maya's crises. He wasn't spending his weekends rescuing Sarah, and his workdays weren't being consumed by Ben's complaints. The constant buzzing in his head had quieted down to a gentle hum. At first, this new emptiness felt strange, almost uncomfortable. He was so used to being busy with other people's lives that he wasn't sure what to do with his own. He remembered Mr. Elias's advice: go back to your own garden. Your only job is to tend to your own soil, pull your own weeds, and water your own plants. So, he started to think about what he actually wanted to do. What were his own interests? What would bring him joy? He remembered how much he used to love sketching. He hadn't picked up a pencil to draw for fun in almost a decade. He went to an art supply store and bought a new sketchbook and a set of nice pencils. That Saturday, instead of waiting for his phone to ring with the next emergency, he went to the local botanical garden. He found a quiet bench by a pond, and for the first time in a very long time, he began to draw. At first, his hand felt clumsy, and his drawings were terrible. He felt frustrated, and a critical voice in his head told him he was wasting his time. But he remembered the lesson of the garden. This was not about creating a masterpiece. It was about the act of tending, the process of paying attention to his own needs. So he persisted. He sketched the ducks on the pond, the weeping willow tree, and the flowers blooming nearby. He focused on the details: the texture of the bark, the way the light hit the water, the delicate shape of a petal. As he focused on these small, beautiful things, the rest of the world seemed to melt away. He was not thinking about Maya or Sarah or Ben. He was completely present in that moment. Just him, his sketchbook, and the peaceful nature around him. He spent 3 hours there, and when he finally packed up to leave, he felt a sense of calm and fulfillment that he hadn't felt in ages. It was a clean, quiet happiness that came from within, not from the validation or approval of others. This was the first flower he had consciously planted and watered in his own garden, and it was beautiful. This became his new routine. He dedicated time each week to his own interests. He started sketching regularly. He rediscovered his love for long walks, exploring different parts of the city with no destination in mind. He started reading books again, getting lost in stories and ideas that had nothing to do with marketing or problem-solving. He even started learning to cook new, healthy meals for himself, turning the simple act of making dinner into a mindful, creative process. Each of these activities was a way of tending to his garden. They were not grand, world-changing actions. They were small, consistent acts of self-care and self-discovery. He was learning who he was outside of his role as a helper. He was building an inner world that was rich and interesting, and, most importantly, his own. This inner strength began to change how he saw himself. He was no longer just a collection of other people's problems. He was Leo, the person who loved to draw, the person who enjoyed quiet walks, the person who could cook a delicious meal. His sense of self-worth was no longer dependent on how useful he was to others. It was growing from his own experiences, his own passions. He was becoming a more whole, complete person. And this internal shift was about to create some surprising and wonderful ripples in the world around him. A month or so after Leo began his journey, he started to notice the strange thing that Mr. Elias had predicted. Things around him were falling into place without his forceful intervention. The first sign came from Maya. She called him one afternoon, but her voice was different. It wasn't frantic or desperate. It was calm and clear. "Hey, Leo," she said. "I just wanted to call and say thank you." Leo was confused. "Thank you for what?" he asked. "For just listening," she explained. "You know, when I was going through all that drama with my boyfriend, you were the only person who didn't tell me what to do. You just listened and gave me space. It actually forced me to think for myself. I realized I was part of the problem, always creating drama. We talked, really talked, for the first time in ages, and things are so much better now. I feel like I finally grew up a little." Leo was speechless. By doing less, he had actually helped more. His silence had been a greater gift than all the advice he had ever given her. He had given her the space to find her own wisdom, and their friendship felt deeper and more genuine because of it. Then there was the situation with his sister, Sarah. After the incident with the presentation, their relationship had shifted. She still called him, but not just when she was in a crisis. She called to tell him about her day, to ask for his opinion on a movie, or just to chat. She started taking more initiative in her own life, solving her own small problems without immediately running to him. One day, she told him she had signed up for a time management workshop at her university. "I realized I can't always rely on you to bail me out," she said with a laugh. "I need to learn how to be more organized myself." Leo felt a surge of pride. By setting a boundary, he had not pushed her away. He had empowered her. Their relationship was no longer based on dependency, but on mutual respect and genuine affection. He was no longer her rescuer. He was her brother, her equal. The changes at work were perhaps the most remarkable. Because Leo was no longer involved in the daily complaints and drama, he had more energy to focus on positive contributions. He started sharing interesting articles with his team. He proposed a new, more efficient way to manage client feedback, and he took the lead on a challenging new project. His boss, Mrs. Gable, called him into her office one day. "Leo," she said, "I've been very impressed with your work lately. You've shown incredible focus and initiative. There's a senior position opening up in the next quarter, and I want you to consider applying for it. I think you'd be a perfect fit." Leo left her office in a daze. A promotion. It was something he had wanted for a long time, but never thought was possible because he was always too busy and distracted. By focusing on his own responsibilities, on his own work garden, he had naturally created the conditions for growth and success. Even his relationship with Ben had improved. Seeing Leo's focus and positive attitude, Ben had started to complain less and ask more constructive questions. The entire office atmosphere seemed to have shifted slightly, becoming more professional and less dramatic, all because one person had decided to change his own approach. These were the ripple effects of his internal work. By focusing inward, he was having a more positive impact on the world around him than he ever had when he was trying to control it. One sunny afternoon, about 3 months after his journey began, Leo found himself walking past the quiet page again. He decided to go in. Mr. Elias was at his usual spot behind the counter, a book in his hands. He looked up as the bell chimed, and a warm smile spread across his face when he saw Leo. "Ah, the gardener has returned," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Your garden must be blooming." Leo smiled back, a genuine, relaxed smile that reached his eyes. "It is," Leo said. "You were right. You were right about everything." He told Mr. Elias all that had happened, about Maya, Sarah, his job, and his newfound love for sketching. He explained how difficult it had been at first, how the guilt and fear had been almost overwhelming, but how he had persevered. He described the peace he now felt, a deep, steady calm that was not dependent on external circumstances. It was a peace that came from within, from knowing he was taking care of his own world. "I used to think my value came from how much I could do for other people," Leo explained, standing there in the quiet, comforting bookstore. "I thought I had to solve everyone's problems to be a good person. But I was just getting in their way, and I was completely ignoring the one person I was truly responsible for, myself. By focusing on myself, by staying silent and letting go of the need to control everything, I didn't become selfish. I became stronger. And because I'm stronger and more peaceful, I'm actually a better friend, a better brother, and a better colleague." Mr. Elias nodded, his expression full of warmth and understanding. "You have learned the most important lesson," he said softly. "You cannot pour from an empty cup. For years, your cup was empty because you were giving all your water away. Now, you have learned to fill your own cup first, so much so that it overflows, and the people around you get to benefit from that overflow, from the genuine peace and strength that radiates from you. That is a far greater gift than any piece of advice you could ever give." Leo left the bookstore that day feeling a profound sense of gratitude. His life was not perfect. There were still challenges and difficult days. Maya still had moments of drama. Sarah still got stressed, and work was still demanding. But Leo's relationship with these challenges had completely changed. He no longer saw them as his personal responsibility to fix. He approached them from a place of calm detachment. He could offer support without getting entangled. He could be empathetic without taking on their emotional burden. He had learned to be the sturdy, quiet tree in the forest, rather than the frantic wind that tries to blow all the leaves in the right direction. His own garden was flourishing. It was a place of peace, creativity, and strength. And from that beautiful, well-tended garden, he could now engage with the world in a way that was both healthier for him and, paradoxically, more helpful to others. He had found that when you stop trying to control every little thing, when you focus on your own growth and stay silent, everything does, in its own time and in its own way, fall into place. So, what can we learn from Leo's story? We have followed him on his journey from a state of anxious, overwhelmed chaos to a place of quiet strength and inner peace. His transformation came from embracing one simple, powerful idea. Focus on yourself, stay silent, and let things fall into place. This doesn't mean becoming a selfish or isolated person. It is not about building walls around you and shutting the world out. It is about understanding where your true power and responsibility lie. Your primary responsibility is to your own well-being, your own garden. When you pour your energy into your own growth, your own peace, and your own happiness, you create a strong foundation for your life. From this foundation, you can interact with the world in a much healthier way. You become a source of calm in the storm, not another person adding to the chaos. Think about the different steps Leo took. First, he made a conscious decision to change. He recognized that his old way of living was not working. Second, he practiced a new kind of silence. With his friend Maya, he learned to listen without an agenda, to support without trying to solve. Third, he learned to set healthy boundaries. With his sister Sarah, he learned to say no to protect his own energy, which ultimately empowered her to find her own strength. Fourth, he learned to detach from negativity, especially at his workplace, which allowed him to protect his focus and excel in his career. And finally, and most importantly, he used the time and energy he reclaimed to invest in himself. He rediscovered his passions and cultivated his own inner world. This journey is available to all of us. You can start today, in a very small way. Pick one area of your life where you feel you are overextending yourself. Maybe it is a friend who constantly relies on you for emotional support. Maybe it is a family member who does not respect your time. Or maybe it is just your own habit of worrying about things you cannot control. Try applying one of Leo's lessons. The next time that friend calls with a problem, try just listening. Say something like, "That sounds really hard," and then just be silent. See what happens. Or, the next time that family member asks for something you don't have the energy to give, try politely saying, "I can't do that right now." Notice how it feels. It will probably feel uncomfortable at first. Guilt might creep in. That is normal. But stay with it. Remind yourself that you are tending to your garden. You are filling your own cup. And remember that by doing so, you are not just helping yourself. You are creating the possibility for healthier, more respectful, and more authentic relationships with everyone around you. You are giving them the space to grow, and you are becoming the best version of yourself that you can be. Thank you so much for joining me here today at English in Fluency. I hope Leo's story has given you some food for thought and has helped you practice your English listening skills. The journey to fluency is like tending a garden. It requires patience, consistent effort, and a focus on your own progress. Every time you listen to a story like this, you are watering your own plants. You are helping your own language skills to grow stronger. If this story resonated with you, I would love to hear about it. Please leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Have you ever tried to apply this principle in your own life? What happened? Sharing your experience can help and inspire others in our community. And of course, if you found this practice helpful and want more stories and lessons to help you on your English journey, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, English in Fluency. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next lesson. My name is Alex, and it has been a pleasure spending this time with you. Keep tending to your garden, keep practicing, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Goodbye for now.